Last night I was able to see Wicked for good. Was Wicked able to cast a spell on me 2 times in a row? Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. And if you've seen Wicked for good, what did you think about it? Give me that point of reference. Are you a long-time Wicked fan, going back to the book, the musical, or are you someone new to the franchise, having seen it for the first time with the first movie? As for me, I was not remotely a fan of Wicked going into last year's film. I'd never seen the play. I had no excitement or anticipation for the film, and it absolutely won me over. I just thought it was such an engaging film that instantly made me fall in love with these characters, this world, and immersed me in a world. But would part 2 be able to keep the magic alive? Let's get started talking about the good. And right off the bat, the heart and soul of Wicked is the relationship between our 2 lead characters. And once again, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo just kind of knock it out of the park here. And the first film is about kind of the forming of their friendship, leading to the moment that creates kind of the schism that sets them on 2 very different paths. And this movie is about that aftermath and them in this distant, strained relationship where each of them are in very complex, difficult situations, which creates a situation where every interaction they have with each other, with others, inherently kind of has all these complex layers to it. There is the superficial presentation that they have to the public, almost the characters that they're playing, and then there's what they're really feeling, and then there's all sorts of interactions they have with individuals that are a facade, it's pretend. And so they have to be able to be charming or likable or whoever they are, but also their character is playing a character that is emoting. And so it's just kind of a depth to what they're doing in a number of the different situations that is just really interesting to see on screen, where it's just layered. Of course, they're amazing singers, and they're put into some of these sequences where even they're having to give layered performances while singing a song, while doing choreography in these complex sets and things like that. And they just really knock it out of the park. The other standout here is Jonathan Bailey, who is just so effortlessly charming and earnest and sincere in everything that he's doing. And so he's absolutely one of these big breakout stars of the last year, of course, being in the Wicked movies, but also being in the new Jurassic World movie and being the sexiest man of the year. So he's having quite the year. Now, to what I mentioned about their performances kind of having layers and depth to them, the movie itself is very emotionally resonant because it's dealing with just these big emotions of love triangles, betrayal, purpose, fitting in, trying to do something that matters. And you just have these big sweeping arcs for each of our main characters. And when you have such a grand film with such a big sweeping score, it's filled with these, goosebump-inducing moments as the emotions swell, as the song crescendos with these great performances. Plenty of the magic moments that you want from a Wicked film. And once again, the costume design, the set design, the choreography are just top-notch and massive in scope and size and scale. Bigger film in terms of the production. And what I mean by that is the first movie primarily takes place at the school and in the Emerald City. There's other things in there, but those are the 2 primary locations. And this film, just by its nature, is much more encompassing of Oz. We're going to a lot more places, a lot more yellow brick road. We're in the Emerald City. We're stopping by the school, but there's all of these other towns, villages, forests, environments. And so you feel kind of the scope and size, and each of them kind of has that distinct aesthetic of the production design of these Wicked movies. And so just there's a lot to it. Just you feel once again like you're just exploring this big lived-in world. In this section of the story, it starts to interweave into the plot of The Wizard of Oz quite a bit more, and so it's just kind of fun to see that. You get a kick out of all the little ways that you kind of like slowly go into that story, see something from this different angle and the motivation behind something. It's a fun reinterpretation of a story that many of us have been watching for our entire lives. Today's video is brought to you by HelloFresh. You may have heard of HelloFresh. They're the #1 meal kit in America, making home cooking easier with chef-crafted recipes and fresh ingredients delivered right to your front door. But this fall, they're serving up even more of what you love. They're bigger, healthier, and tastier. HelloFresh has doubled its menu. Now you can choose from 100 options each week. Feel great with an even healthier menu. This one's big for me because I watch what I eat pretty carefully. Choose from 15 plus high protein recipes each week with options like grass-fed ribeyes or lamb chops. HelloFresh now helps you eat greener with new veggie-packed recipes. This next one's my favorite. Get steak and seafood recipes delivered every week for no extra cost. Now with 3 times the seafood options. I'm a low-carb, high-protein kind of guy, so I love to hear that. I use HelloFresh, and you should too. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/SeanChandler10FM now to get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's HelloFresh.com/SeanChandler10FM to get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. And as before, there's a handful of these sequences that are just so meticulously crafted and thought through that you're just kind of in awe of the staging of everything and taking something that was incredibly popular on a stage and finding ways to bring new flourishes, new creativity, and new energy to it using cinematic tricks. Specifically, there is a sequence of Glinda singing kind of alone in a room, and it plays as one single shot, and it's following her around as she keeps looking into mirrors. And as it looks into the mirror, the camera like backs through into the mirror, and we go into the reverse of it. And not that it's reversed, but like it's like you don't know where the cut is. You don't know how we're going into the mirror, what exactly is going on. And it's just a really cool sequence. And you're seeing something you don't normally see in a movie, and it's someone singing, someone kind of dancing, with intricate camera staging and choreography with everything else going on. So just really cool stuff taking place. And as before, there's, as I mentioned, kind of these goosebump-inducing moments. It frequently finds a ways to crescendo the songs, the emotions, the dialogue, the plot points, all into these very cool moments. But that's to say that the moments in this movie can be just as spellbinding as the first film, but I think the overall magic isn't quite there this time. So let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. And in the mixed section, basically what I want to do is tell you what my sister, who is a Wicked superfan, thought of Wicked for Good. As I mentioned before, I'm new to Wicked. I did not know the story of the back half of Wicked when I watched this movie last night. It was all fresh and new for me. And I watched it with my sister, who watched the Broadway play, 20 years ago or whatever. She knows every plot point, every word to every song. My sister, the super fan, basically said, it's a good movie, but it's definitely a step down from the first film. You can feel all the ways in which they're trying to pad out and convert 30, 40 minutes of a play into a 2+ hour movie. And because of that, it's kind of clunky, it's weird, it feels like there's kind of rabbit trails in there. The other big thing she mentioned is that there's changes to the ending of it that she thought was just baffling, that does not serve the movie, the emotion at all. And it kind of cheapens a really powerful moment. And so she didn't understand why they made that change. And then she talked about how they restructure when certain information is communicated. The film treats certain things like big gigantic reveals at the end that weren't in the play, in which case it's just so blatantly obviously where this was heading, to the point of, like, as the new person watching it and my sister being very familiar with it, both of us were like, that was insulting that it thought that that was a reveal. Like, how dumb do you think I am that I didn't piece that together with all of the clues on the table, how much you, like, shouted it in, shouted it without shouting it. Like, it was just so obvious where it was going. And then it treats it like, ta-da! Look, what happened? Like, right. I figured that out instantly. I figured that out before it even happened. It was very obvious where they were going for these 5 reasons. So she thought it was good, but definitely a step backwards from the previous one. And it did feel padded, and the changes didn't help and pretty clearly hurt the movie in quite a few ways. From there, let's move on to the bad. Big step backwards from the first film. I went into the first film without any real expectations, not as a fan, and was completely won over by the film and thought it crescendoed wonderfully with Defying Gravity. And this movie felt more like what I expected the first film to be, which is to say, amazing production design, great singing, performances, all of that was great, but a much clunkier, messier film. And I think some of that is that because of the nature of the first half, it's telling the story of Oz before you get to the Wizard of Oz, the story of the Wizard of Oz. And so there's just a lot of freedom that it can have to just kind of tell these stories about the characters in an organic way and make you fall in love with both of them and root for them in their own ways. But this section of the story now intertwines into The Wizard of Oz, which at times, superficially, it's fun to see the little connections, but it also feels a lot more like you're trying to cram pieces together that don't quite fit. And in order to cause characters to make certain choices, to make certain characters turn into other characters and things like that, it just doesn't flow nearly as organically. It feels like we're, bending the pieces to fit rather than telling a story in the most natural, organic fashion. And also, in order for us to get from movie number 1 to The Wizard of Oz, characters have to make certain choices that just kind of make them unlikable or make them incredibly frustrating, and you're no longer rooting for them. Because it is this darker film where we're split apart and you don't get the fun of watching people come together, you're seeing them torn apart, relationships crumble, love triangles, the fallout from that, lies, propaganda. It's kind of just dwelling in a lot darker spaces with characters being much more frustrating. And so it's just like a lot of downer moments. It doesn't have that uplifting feel that you have in the first film. As the pieces come together, you're just like, oh, why is she doing that? Why is he doing that? Can't they just talk to? Oh no! Oh. And it's the tragic drama side to it. And tragedy and drama aren't entirely bad, but with the issue is that you're taking a story that was meant to be 2 hour and 40 minute story, and you turn it into like 5 hours of story, and the ratios get off of how much of it is uplifting versus how much of it is downer, because you're adapting the last part. And I think it has to fill it out with more downer stuff, and the pacing gets off, and the emotional balance gets way off, and just makes for something that is significantly less pleasant to experience because we have to dwell so long on the negative. Likewise, I don't think the songs here are nearly as memorable, or at least the high points. The best songs here aren't nearly as strong as the best songs in the previous one, with popular, Defying Gravity, of course, being the fan favorites and everything like that. And you have sequences here that was like, oh, that was a cool sequence, that because of the one with the mirrors, or what it means for these characters, the performances, the singing, the orchestration. They're powerful sequences, but the songs themselves weren't as memorable to me. I just, left the theater a year ago with songs stuck in my head that I kept listening to. That did not happen with this one, where I literally remembered the sequence, but not the song frequently. And so music's not quite as strong this go around. And as I said in the mixed section, or when I was sharing my sister's thoughts, there's at least one reveal in this that I just thought it was crazy how they handled it, because it full blown tries to pretend like it's keeping this big secret that we're revealing at the end. And you're like, what are you talking about? It was so obvious. If you have seen The Wizard of Oz and don't know how these pieces fit together, I'm concerned about you. Like it's so painfully obvious where it's going, and then it's like, ta-da! Look what it is. Look what happened. Look, you're like, right. It could not have been more obvious what happened. So I'd say it's a very frustrating film, because individual moments, performances, sequences, production design are just as good as the first film, but the story itself is a lot clunkier, and it dwells in a much more unpleasant place, and it builds to a crescendo and finale that's not as powerful as the first film. So for me, as much as the first one was such a pleasant surprise for me, this was unfortunately a pretty big disappointment. Not outright bad, but a pretty big disappointment. Overall, it's a B- on the entertainment scale, a 6.5 out of 10. And you're gonna go see it, but go see it at matinee. This is not a rush out to see it, must-see kind of film. It is a big step backwards, but still worth seeing for the parts rather than for the whole. Let me know what you thought down below in the comment section, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.